Hey, you busy? Mm-mm. Okay, let me run something past you real quick. I am the kind of grandbaby that I pay attention to the streets even though I don't be in the streets. I keep an ear out for awareness purposes only, but I try not to keep my ear there. You know, the whole thing about, you're in this world, but don't be of this world. And what I picked up in my ear hustling is this whole thing surrounding imposter syndrome. I feel led to go ahead and break it down. And I realized that there were so many other components to it. Not doing a whole bunch of research because I'm also not the scientific grandbaby. I jab. I get in, I get out. I don't really want to do all the circling around in depots because if I research something, I want to know the origin. Okay, I want to know the root. I want to know all the things, and it can get lengthy. Okay, great. And I don't want to particularly do that, but I did come across something that was like, this makes me think. First of all, you can't research anything without looking at the definition first because who even are you if you don't do that, right? So I looked up what imposter syndrome was defined as with the bishops and the deacons over at the Oxford Dictionary. And it says it's a noun. And imposter syndrome, the definition is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So you have one hand where it's like, someone doesn't believe that they deserved it. And no matter how much you try to convince them, no matter how much you try to go ahead and give all the data that is there, you work so hard, you put in these hours, you were the creative force behind it, you were the visionary, you were the whatever, nothing that you say, Kay, can go ahead and convince them that they were deserving of that particular success. And then there's the other side of that. There's the grandbaby that feels like they illegitimately achieved it because they don't really believe in their own efforts or skills. And it's like, but you do realize you have a singing voice, but you do realize you have a business acumen, but you do realize you have this way of looking at something and bringing it to pass. It's like the way that you address something, the way that God gave you your customized imprint on this thing. You can't tell me that you can possibly believe that your thumbprint is regular. But for whatever reason, they do. And so I was muddling that around in my mind, and I'm like, although imposter syndrome has two different definitions, I feel like it also comes from two different places. I believe that imposter syndrome can come from inner, meaning that, listen, you don't need no help beating yourself up. You go ahead and do it yourself. And when I think about a biblical example of that, I think of Moses. Moses didn't have a crowd around him when he was experiencing the holy ground situation in the burning bush that wasn't really getting burnt up. When he had that encounter with God on the side of the mountain, he himself was his worst enemy. God was literally like, I'm about to do something dope with you, broski. And Moses was like, yeah, but you don't know what I did. God was like, okay, you must have thought I just woke up and met you. Don't really know how this works. But like, listen, go down there and do A, B, and C. Yeah, but like, who do I say sent me when they ask? Like, the people not even gonna listen. And he had all these excuses, and then it was aside from them not possibly believing him, he talks with a little bit of a stutter, just a little tongue-tied situation. And God was like, but who made the mouth? And God was literally trying to convince Moses on the side of the mountain, and nothing that God said was able to get Moses to the place of understanding, to the point that Moses actually was like, you know what, God, send somebody else. Send somebody else? Now, the Bible doesn't say how long They stayed at the side of the bush, but you would figure if he had enough time to go ahead and tell you what to do with the staff, it's going to turn into a snake. To put your hand in your cloak, go ahead and do that. All these things are happening, and God is telling you how dope it's getting ready to be, and this, that, and the third, and you literally are like, yeah, but I want you to go ahead and send someone else. You want me to go ahead and send someone else. How much of a prison is imposter syndrome when it comes from within? How much of a mental anguish is it to know I could, but life has beat that out of that person? That experiences and seeing other people's lives and seeing that I don't mount up and rebuke that in the name of Jesus, and all these other things that have been logically or illogically established has gone ahead and been the anchor in whatever it is that God decided he wanted to do through a person. I couldn't possibly understand burying something in Egypt, seeing that God already factored that in. And on the side of the mountain with this burning bush, God is like, but I want to use you, bro. Like you got, it's the sauce. Like I can't really tell you, but I feel like you the man for the job. And to be bold enough to try to convince God to choose somebody else, when this whole time God was trying to convince that you were the one, that you are the one, that I didn't make a mistake when I called you. I didn't factor in your past and go, if it wasn't for that one thing that you did in Egypt that one time with the Hebrew. Like, it doesn't work that way. You're called because you're called. You're called because it is. You're called because God said it was so. You have what it takes. Why? Because God put it in you. Like, there is just some things that it's like, listen, do not try to, that's like the battery looking at the remote like, please get somebody else. It's like, why? Because I'm not Duracell, because I'm not, and naming other brands or naming other size batteries or naming other places that, you could possibly be using a greater. It's like at some point you have to look at the battery like, but you didn't make yourself. You didn't make yourself. And somewhere along the line, this whole self-made thing may have got you into the thinking that you believe that if you can't make yourself, then you can't succeed by yourself, and you can't. And there's all this pressure that you carrying when you were just supposed to be the battery. When God created us, he literally illustrated it in John like, look, God is the gardener. Jesus is the vine. All you got to do is abide in him and he'll abide in you. And if you're producing fruit, great. He's finna prune you so you can produce more. And if you're not producing fruit, then he's going to prune you so you can start producing fruit. It's like out of all of that, between being the gardener, between being the vine, between just being the branch, you got the part of the branch. Is that a lot of pressure? No. Because being a part of a branch, like you can't control the weather. You don't know when it's going to rain. You can't position yourself to be closer to the sun. You can't position yourself to go ahead, okay, but I'm going to need fertilizer. You don't meet your needs. You don't even, if he says that he is pruning you to produce more fruit, you're not even the orchestrator of your success. So what you're really battling with is not that, oh, can I do it? Is you have been deceived to believe that you are the source of the success. That's the true imposter syndrome when it comes inwardly. Who told you you were naked? Who told you that you are the one that has to go ahead and put this thing to pass? Who told you that it all comes from your hands? Who told you that it only comes from the resources that you can grind for? Who told you that success only comes in this way, at this age, to this group of people, that you got to get in this networking event, that you got to get closer to who told you all of this? And more importantly, when are you going to be brave enough to release it? It's not true. I think that the most, out of the two, the second one that I'm going to give you is outer when it comes to imposter syndrome. But I think of the two, the inner is the worst. Because you are everywhere you go. That self-talk, the way you see yourself in the mirror, the way you carry yourself through life, you can't escape that. If someone is spewing off something that don't align with God, you can control that convo and you can end it, and you can go ahead and, you know what, and exit stage left on it. You can't exit stage left on yourself. So to really be Moses at heart, where you have all this greatness in you, God just showed you on the side of the mountain one aspect of what your staff can do that you've been carrying in this whole time, not even understanding what you were carrying in the first place. You just thought on the side of this mountain, I threw it and it turned into a serpent, it turned into a snake. And before that, it was just helping Moses walk. But you don't understand, it's about the split Red Seas. When God tells you to go ahead and raise your hand over the Red Sea, you don't even understand that it's going to have water coming out of rocks. You don't even understand, like, there are some other aspects to this, but God can't even start to unveil any of that to you. And so you start to believe what he put in you. Believe that what he put in you is what's coming out, not what you invested in, not your education, not your networking capability, not your excellent ability to choose right, not your ability to get all the friends right. Like, it is not banking on you, because if it were, you know what, honestly, I will be scared for you too. I will be scared for me too if this whole thing was banking on my limited mortal way of thinking. I'm made from dirt, okay? This is clay. I do not want to have to figure this whole thing out, and I'm limited to time, to space, to resources, to everything. I do not want to plan something in my limitations. I'd rather just serve a limitless God. I'd rather just serve the one that can see. I'd rather serve the one that is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. I'd rather serve the one that is omnipresent. I'd rather serve the one that is holy of holy. I'd rather serve the one that knows the number of hair on my head. Let me explain something to you. I've had this same head my entire life. I mean, I know where my ears are at. I know where my eyebrows is at, but I couldn't possibly tell you how many hair strands I have. Why would I then want to walk through life with that limited information? And I've known me for decades. Why would I then want to try to build up a masterpiece when I could just submit everything to my master? Like, why would I even want to do that? So Moses is a great example of when the imposter syndrome is stemming from something inner. The other portion of that is the outer portion. And we best see that when Jesus got all parts of this, and it's like, I'm so sorry, Jesus. I mean, on behalf of the grandbabies that didn't know no better, forgive them, for they know not what they do, sir, okay? Because Jesus was trying to talk with authority in the temples and the synagogues, and they were looking at him like, the people were amazed, the Bible said, that he was talking with such vernacular power and authority. And the only thing they can say was, isn't that Joseph's son? Beyond the fact that y'all had some foreknowledge, right? That this boy, we at least know he's been in the temple since a youth. We at least know he's been there since 12. Because that one time that Mary and Joseph left him, and they were like, we were looking for you frantically. He was like, why? You should have known I was about my father's business. Like, why y'all looking for me? Why you franticking when I'm with my father? I don't get it. Okay, great. And it was like, oh. So if y'all knew that he was born and bred, bare minimum knowledge, at least in the temple and the synagogues, why y'all surprised that when he gets to 30, it's like, oh, he's speaking with authority and with, like, that's a little weird that y'all didn't put that one and that one together and got two at all with all of y'all there. Like, that's kind of weird. Or when you had, Nathaniel go ahead and be told about Jesus, and he's like, Jesus of Nazareth? Is anything dope in Nazareth? Like, any good come from there? To have to constantly have this outer experience that nobody believes you, sir. Everybody's like, oh, maybe he's John the Baptist risen, or he's maybe Elijah, or maybe he's one of the other prophets that have risen. And that's why I think that Jesus so lovingly had a heart to heart with Peter in Luke, I believe it's 9. He asked Peter, he said, who do the people say that I am? Yep, Luke 9. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Luke 9, you know I read from the NLT version. 18. One day Jesus left the crowds to pray alone. Only his disciples were with him, and he asked them, who do people say I am? 19. Well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say you are one of the other ancient prophets risen from the dead. 20. Then he asked them, but who do you say I am? Peter replied, oh, you are the Messiah sent from God. It's one thing to have people who don't matter not believe in you. It's another thing with the people that do matter. They need to. See, Nathaniel, the people in the synagogue, all that, it don't matter. Y'all don't believe. You don't have to believe. Just keep watching. I promise you. If you don't go to sleep on the commercials, and you've been sleeping on me, just don't sleep on the commercials, because you may get up and be like, wait, what I miss? Everything. God was super moving, but you decided to snooze on your girl so you can have a nice day now. Okay, great. But the beauty of it is the one who did matter, Peter, the one that Jesus said, I'm going to go ahead and build my church. You will be the cornerstone. It mattered what he thought. Where else did Jesus ask anybody else, what do you think of me? In layman terms. Where else did he ask, do you believe that I am who I say I am? Do you? When it came time to ask people what they believed in, that was according to their faith and the healing that they were getting. Because he needed for them to know, oh, this healing is coming from your faith. Just know that. If it don't work, it ain't because of me. It's because of your faith. Just know that. If I go ahead and touch your eye and you can't see, that's between you and the Lord and the socket, because your faith is not where it needs to be. Have a nice day. And so there's something in that. Don't worry about what everybody else externally is saying and thinking. If they needed to believe differently, if they were important enough to the mission that God had over your life for them to believe differently, then God would have went ahead and did such. Why do you think God went out of his way to make sure that Pharaoh's heart was hardened? Because he would not make or break God's promise over the life of the Israelites. Sometimes people are fighting to get people to believe in them. I just need them to see me. I just need them to value me. I just need them to understand where I'm coming from. I just need them to understand I'm coming with good intentions, that I have a gift, that God sent me here to do A, B, and C. You doing way too much, because I'm about to read to you how Jesus told the disciples to deal with people who did not want to accept. That will go ahead and fizzle that outer portion of imposter syndrome, to sizzle that thing completely out. No longer, after this conversation, are we ever dealing with an inner or an outer version of imposter syndrome. We are done, okay? I want to read why I'm going to go ahead and declare such a thing. And it's because I read in my good Bible how Jesus literally just gave me a peek into some other people's lives. But then God low-key was like, because it's for our lives. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what would dissipate imposter syndrome altogether on all levels? Knowing that you are prepared. Yo, I don't care what God called you to. He's been preparing you this entire time. He's been preparing you this entire time. You may have been deceived in other ways prior to this conversation to believe otherwise, but you don't know. Preparation looks way different for everyone. For Moses, it looked like, yo, I'm giving you a heart from birth for your people. I need that burden of, I want my people to be taken care of, to still be on your heart, even when you're in the palace. I need you to see Hebrew people fighting, and you come out of your central air palace to go outside and say, my brothers, what are y'all doing? I'm already, If they can take the palace from you, they can take the robe from you, they can take the signet ring, they can take whatever they want externally, but they can't take away that burden that I gave you for people. And you're trying to figure out, why do I still have a heart for people when people treated me like this? Why do I still have a heart for people when the very pharaoh, that the palace that I'm in, and his daughter who saved me, he's the one that put out this whole law that any Hebrew boy has to be thrown into the Nile River? Why do I still carry myself in this way that I care so much? How come? And that's what you don't understand. You didn't place that care there. God did. God did. So you know what would dissipate all that inner imposter syndrome? I'm not fighting what God planted in me, because obviously God has a plan for me. Obviously, God has a plan for this. Obviously, because if I can shake this and put this somewhere else, or go ahead and unsubscribe to it, okay, great, whatever I needed to do, I would. But you know what? That burden, I'm looking at other people like, that don't bother you? And they're like, actually, no. And I'm like, yeah, me either. But I'm sweating different. My deodorant is not holding up like yours. Like, this is, we built different, or God put something different in me. That external imposter syndrome. Listen, once you really go ahead and chuck away what other people think, and you just make sure that you being spirit-led, they will eventually become fans. But it's okay, because we're not in it to be celebrities, okay? Yeah, if our mission was to go ahead and just convince the whole world, then I guess it would be a little burdensome, but it's not. Your mission and what you have been entrusted to do is your part. Do your part and really identify all the ways that God has been preparing you the whole entire time. I want to go ahead and read in Luke 9. I'm going to read from the NLT version. You already know, but I'm going to read from the first verse. One day, Jesus called together his 12 disciples and gave them power and authority to cast out all demons and to heal all diseases. 2, then he set them out to tell everyone about the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. 3, take nothing for your journey, he instructed them. Don't take a walking stick, a traveler's bag, food, money, or even a change of clothes. 4, wherever you go, stay in the same house until you leave town. 5, and if a town refuses to welcome you, shake its dust from your feet as you leave to show that you have abandoned those people to their faith. 6, so they began their circuit of the villages, preaching the good news and healing the sick, the sick. Then jumping down to verse 10, when the apostles returned, they told Jesus everything they had done. Then he slipped quietly away with them toward the town of Bethsaida. Pause. Here you have Jesus like, okay, he knows that there's a time limit on how much time and energy and teaching that he can put into the disciples. He understands that it's going to be very difficult to go ahead and do this ministry and leave them without them ever having left his side before. So what does Jesus do in all of his brilliance? He's like, you know what? Let me go ahead and start training you in this way so that you start building some confidence, and also at the same time seeing that you can do it without me because I gave you a word from me. So that should be enough to sustain you. And I want you to get so used to only leaning on my word and my direction that I'm going to tell you, don't bring nothing else with you. I'm sorry, don't bring nothing else with you. Don't bring nothing else with you. I don't want you bringing no walking stick, no traveler's bag, no food, no money, or even a change of clothes. And there had to have been some form of level of trust built up until that point, because there was no rebuttal to that. The average person would have been like, now Jesus, time out. What if we get thirsty? Yeah, he's right. And it is just it's 12 of them. It would have caused some type of like, mob situation, because people want to know, sir, like, we only know how to travel with you. Now you're telling us to travel by ourselves. But when God sees that you are at the level of ripeness, he then goes ahead and starts to prepare you for the way in which you should go. Jesus had to have seen they trust me now. They're not talking back. They're not frantic when things happen. They're not. Now they got confidence in me. So I want them to start having confidence in themselves. And then what happened? Verse 10 said, when they returned, they told Jesus everything that they had done. So there probably was some excitement, like, yo, let me tell you, we was like, in the name of Jesus. And they was like, oh, it probably, I wish I was a fly on the wall, a fly on the tent. I ain't gonna hold you. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's dope. But then I went to the next verse. I went to Luke, or the next chapter rather, Luke 10. It starts off saying, Jesus sent out 72 more disciples. Time out. Run that back, Quavo. No need. I'm going to read from verse 1. The Lord now chose 72 other disciples and sent them ahead in pairs to all the towns and places he planned to visit. 2. These were his instructions to them. The harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his fields. 3. Now go and remember that I'm sending you out as lambs among wolves. 4. Don't take any money with you, nor a traveler's bag, nor an extra pair of sandals, and don't stop to greet anyone on the road. 5. Whenever you enter someone's home, first say, may God's peace be on this house. 6. If those who live there are peaceful, the blessing will stand. If they are not, the blessing will return to you. 7. Don't move around from home to home. Stay in one place, eating and drinking what they provide. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality, because those who work deserve their pay. Then I jumped down to when they actually came back. It says, verse 16, then he said to the disciples, anyone who accepts your message is also accepting me. And anyone who rejects you is rejecting me. And anyone who rejects me is rejecting God who sent me. 17, when the 72 disciples returned, they joyfully reported to him, Lord, even the demons obey us when we use your name. Pause. This feels like preparation. And I think that if I would have had an opportunity to speak to the disciples in Luke 10 when it was just, or Luke 9 when it was just 12 of them, if I would have said, hey, do you feel like you're prepared to carry on in ministry? They would have been like, no. We time out. And they probably would have been experiencing some level of imposter syndrome. Why? Because we didn't study like the way Jesus studied. We're not the Messiah the way that Jesus is the Messiah. We don't have the ability to be feeding 5,000. Like, it's a lot going, like, we're not prepared. Then if it wasn't attacking them inwardly, it would have been externally. Who do y'all think y'all are? Oh, now you another Jesus of Nazareth. You didn't even come from Nazareth. Isn't your mother from and would have been naming other places. And so on their level, it would have been inward and externally, because at this point, wow, y'all just literally showed up. At least they knew Joseph, and at least they knew Mary, and we knew Jesus from a baby. Like, when it came back for the census, we were able to connect to all this. But the fact that y'all are just low key, high key, his friends, now you think that we didn't believe him, and we seen him in the synagogues all the time. But now you want us to believe in you. They would have been hit from all levels. But I read a Bible in a way that shows me that step by step, stage by stage, Jesus was preparing them. First stage was, if I ask you to follow me, I want no rebuttal. Do you believe that I am who they have been saying that I am? It's like, yep. So you will follow me wherever I go. Cool. Check 1. Then, okay, so you believe that all your needs are going to get met when you're with me, right? Correct. Okay. Step 2. Now, let's see, I know that you believe in me when you're with me, but do you also believe in my word? If I give you a word and I send you out to go do a thing, will you stand on my word to complete the thing? Absolutely. So you'll do that at 12? Absolutely. Will you do it with 72 more? Absolutely. Bro, y'all don't even see how God is just literally low key, high key, preparing you for the entire way. Preparing you for the entire way. So that when you get to a place that he's starting to increase you, you don't even realize he's increasing you. When you get to a place that you realize, yo, low key, I've been doing this on a lower scale, but it feels the same because God has been showing me how to do things. God has been showing me how to lean on his word. God's been showing me that he would never leave me nor forsake me. God's been showing me that the Bible is a living word, that it would never come back void, that he's a man that he shall not lie, that he is Alpha Omega. He is Jireh the provider. And then all of a sudden you reach this place and you're like, I believe him. So I don't have to believe in me alone. That's when you shatter the ceiling to imposter syndrome. You shatter it. It's nowhere else to go because it's no longer thriving on you, your thoughts about you, or what other people think about you. When you remove you got to replace it with another 3-letter word. It might as well be God. I literally love the fact that all of our preparation is going to look different. I'll give you a little sneak. If you promise not to gossip, I'll give you a sneak peek into my life. And the only reason why I'm using this, not for you to gossip, because we're non-gossiping grandbabies, okay, great. But I'm giving you this to show you that preparation looks different for everyone. I thought that preparation would look like, you're already in that role. You may be close to, close proximity to what you already foresee that you will be doing on a bigger scale, or the above, right? But then I started looking at certain things, especially the Joseph story. And I was seeing how this man became second in command under Pharaoh. How? Because each level from the pit to the palace was all prepping him for what God ultimately had for him. And then I was like, okay, then I'm thinking about Joshua. And I'm like, man, Joshua was only Moses' assistant. We don't know what that looked like. He could have been a water boy. He could have been one that just went ahead and made sure that he was, tech messages before tech messages. Moses would give him a word and he have to go throughout the camps and tell everybody what it is. We don't know what that really embodied, but it really was like, bro, you just an assistant to Moses. Moses was the one that was called, yet God told Joshua, be brave and strong, be brave and strong. And so I'm looking at all these other character and story and things that is really driving home this thing of like, okay, so everyone's prep looks different. And I asked myself, what does it look like in this season? How is God prepping me? And what does that look like in this season? And I truly feel like God is showing me how to rest. Because the worst thing in the world is to get what God wants you to be, and then you realize that wasn't it. And so you need to now decommit. You need to now slow down. You need to now make sure your calendar isn't as busy. So people usually arrive to the stage and then realize this momentum is not sustainable long term. So then they either have to put someone in place, or they have to go ahead and delegate some things, or they have to go ahead and scale back in some kind of way. And then they have to fight the guilt of that. They have to fight because ultimately this is your baby. So the fact that you need nannies all across the, whatever people you need, or however you go ahead and hierarchy it still feels like, man, it's mismanaged because I didn't know how to manage that. Rebuke that in the name of Jesus. I feel like God has given me the gift of develop your palate for the correct pace in life now, so that wherever I send you, no one can't pull that from you. Because the one thing that kept getting my decision or kept getting my attention was the way in which Jesus walked the earth. That man was poised. That man had a pace that was unrushed. I don't care if Martha and Mary send 50 people. Lazarus can wait another day. Okay, you know what? I'm getting up. I'm getting ready to go to Jairus. But wait a minute, the woman with the issue of blood, never did it say, and Jesus was hurrying up, or quickly he got to the other side, or that there was nothing that showed, all right, he's trying to make up for lost time because it took him 30 years to get on the scene. So he's really trying to, and I marveled in that. No one made you rush. All these people, and they coming back, and yeah, I want to go ahead and tell you about the tour that you sent us on, bro. Let me tell you. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And the Bible says that he slipped away to go have some time by himself. He slipped away to go have some time to himself. I said, now wait now. Jesus' posture couldn't have been any louder. It was literally, I know what sustains me, and that is me being constantly aligned with God and aligned with what I need. I need rest. I need food. But what I also want to be clear on is that rushing is not better. Rushing don't make him better. Rushing doesn't make them better. And a leader needs to show, if I'm showing you how I want you to carry out this mission, then I want you to always revert back to the Jesus way. And so after I got that revelation, I then decided I'm not fighting it no more. You know that urge that you get that you're like, I should be doing something. I should be doing more. I have learned to bask, and even started envisioning, like, what if I got a phone call right now that was like, hey, X amount of dollars to take up half of your calendar for next month. What would your answer be? I've even started practicing my no, because there is not an amount in this world that is going to get me to shift how God has been preparing me. My prayer is that I don't arrive and forget how I got here. That I don't arrive and I forget all the essentials. I don't need to get to the top and then see, man, it's lonely up here. Can I be honest with you? Today was probably one of the first days in my life that I was like, God, thank you for making my circle small on this level, so that I don't feel lonely on the higher levels. I've already started to learn how to entertain myself. What I define as entertainment, what's fun to me, what's relaxing to me. And God needed to remove a lot of people away from me so that I started getting back to the manufactured default of me. And so, if prep in somebody else's life looks like they interning somewhere, if prep in another person's life looks like they're starting to get more information, or they getting that particular degree, or they got that job, or they already come for that family, do not look at anyone else's prep and go, man, I wish I would have had that, because that's how imposter syndrome thrives. What we're trying to get to and what we're going to master is everything that has happened in my life. Every single portion, every event, every ingredient has aided to the fact that I've been prepped for this moment. So there's no need to be impostered. How do you even spell impostered? I am. That's directing back to you. So cross out the I, cross out the M. Has nothing to do with you, and start doing it. Well, you know what? If it was all banking on me, I would feel some kind of way too, but it's not. I had nothing to do with my creation. I had nothing to do with the way that I look. I had nothing to do with when I was born. I had nothing to do with my DNA selections thereof. I had nothing to do with my wiring. I had nothing to do with my personality. I had nothing to do with my calling. I had nothing to do with the plan that God had in my life. I have nothing to do with the purpose. All of this was predetermined before I got here. So I won't get to certain portions of my life and try to figure out how to get me there. I'm not doing it. That, my friend, is how you tell imposter syndrome, have a nice day. Do you understand? But listen, I feel like you got what you needed. You know what these conversations are, though, right? Of course you do. They are life-provoking conversations. Conversations that not your average girl's going to have with you, but who your favorite girl. Have you been looking at the YouTubes? You should. Created, the number 2, multiply. Yes. Have you been looking up the e-courses and all the things that are all the things on created, the number 2, multiplied.com? Listen, your girl's going to use every bit of this encouragement oil. Do you understand? Do you have the knowing? Do you have the understandings? Okay, I'm glad you do. Listen, I'm going to go ahead and let me go because you got YouTubes and websites and merch and all that stuff to get into. And so we'll talk later. Okay? Alrighty. Later.